We're live. It is the WebDev Mob, and we have myself, Sam, and also Amrita. Amrita's here. Hooray! Amrita, Fiona, and Linda, and Akoth. And yeah, this is the WebDev Mob, and I think Akoth and Amrita are new, so we could just sort of give a quick overview of what we do in the WebDev Mob. Hi, Amrita. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks.
Great to have you with us. Just introduce this Fiona and Linda. Another
Hi.
couple
Hello.
Of working parents who are based in the UK, and then we've got also Akoth here who's based in Kenya, and interested in seeing he's sort of just like yourself come by to see what we do, and yeah, so it's all about web development. We sort of created this originally around myself, Fiona, and Linda, and sort of Fiona and Linda actually came to me and sort of saying they were interested in starting kind of codes. School things for like working with children, and so we spent some time. What was it? First, it was on code. I think Code Wars, possibly. Doing little sort of Python things, but eventually we moved on to looking at some other bits and pieces. And I'm ill, and so my brain's not working fantastically well. The name of it is called the Odin Project. So there's a WebDev Mob there, and so then we've been working through the introductory parts of the Odin project, their web development, and we've done quite a chunk of that to do with Git. I mean, so the Odin project sort of lists up lots of other things rather than it being mainly their own materials. They have, let's have a look if we go and see for Git basics. When they have the Git stuff, what they're doing is they're suggesting, I guess that one. So sometimes they have assignments where they walk you through it, but often what they're doing is linking you out to other places. So like this is a link to Code Academy, and we spent some time doing the Code Academy for the Git workflow, which is all about version management. So yeah, we got through this, and we did all the front end, and we kind of got up to about here, which is sort of putting together our own HTML and CSS things. And then we were sort of poised on the maybe starting the JavaScript basics, which perhaps we'll come back to at one point. But then we had the opportunity to work on the Harrow Woodcraft website, and that was another thing that Linda and Fiona mentioned, was like setting up sites for charities and things like that, and being able to do that. And so what we've been doing the last few weeks, and this is sort of kind of come almost sort of a natural kind of conclusion, is, and I was showing you on Wednesday before, wasn't I, Amrita? And Akoth, I don't know if you've seen, probably haven't seen these before, but so what we've got here, this is a site for a local small sort of charity community group.
Okay.
And this is all built. We go down over here. We've got that all on GitHub. So the code for it is all open source, and that's part of the big Agile Ventures thing, is that we try and do work in the open so that everybody can benefit from the learning from it. Let's go and do this here. How we've got new members. Yeah, and so this site is very affordably hosted on GitHub, basically by having this sort of like coding framework in here, which is largely HTML and CSS, but it's also using a little bit of programming on it as well. That's the camera angle that I want there. Yeah. So this all sits here, and then actually, so we've got, I don't know if they're necessarily working, but everybody on the team, so there's Linda's version, have got their own version of the site that they can sort of play with and do experiments. And Linda and Fiona, you previously did the have not found page for us and styled that nicely, and I think that was a big win. And so moving forward, we may come back to doing more working through bits of courses. But the thing we've been talking about is moving towards doing something for another local charity, which is the Harrow Women's Centre, and I've been helping them out with their tech issues. Amrita's doing the design, by the way, for the Harrow Women's Centre. And so there were parts of creating this Harrow Woodcraft website where we kind of like, there was someone came and stepped in and helped us out, and we were thinking there was some value in kind of doing it again for another site and seeing how it all fit together and choosing the technology and so on and so forth. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. I'll just pause for Akoth. Does that make sense, what we're doing and where we are?
Yeah, that does. Yeah, of course, I get an overview of what is happening. I'm not very well versed with the code because I'm towards the design side.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, maybe I'll learn a few things while doing it. Yeah, thanks.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And that's so we had. I think I mentioned Amrita to you, Linda and Fiona, as she would be doing the kind of the design. I think we talked about this last week at that event we were at, didn't we, Linda?
Yeah.
No, I was on it as well when
Right, and you, that's of course, and Fiona, and you were on. So yeah, last week we had a bit of a funny one where we went to an open charities meetup, which was quite an interesting event. There was this awful guy in a check shirt who just didn't know what he was talking about. But the other two speakers were fantastic. Let's go on to
the first thing you say, Sam.
Sorry, say again.
That's always the first thing you say. The first thing you start with. There was this awful one, and then.
Well, I don't know. I mean, particularly how well prepared the other two were. I felt very poor in comparison. But then people were very polite and covered it up and said nice things. But so I was trying to bring in here. So we have got this. So this is oh gosh, here we go. So we've got the channel. Yeah, Koth, I don't know if you're in this. So we've got, as well as a private WebDev Mob channel, we've got the channel where we've been discussing this, the Woodcraft Harrow, that particular site. And yeah, so just going to, as I was doing last week, just to refresh our memory. So yes, this was the kind of design that we received from the designer of the Harrow Woodcraft there, which was just sort of a layout of this. And it was Peter who's based in the States and is only really available at weekends. He kind of took that and did this sort of, not so much a wireframe, but sort of almost like a CSS overview of how the site was going to be and what all of the section names were going to be, and working out the colors and the font sizes. Lovely overview that he did for us there. And then if I go and look for, wonder if I've got file open recent, can I find Harrow Woodcraft new members? And then so the code for the site is largely these just sort of fragments of HTML. So if we have a look in here, so we've got so this is like the header portion there. So that's the very top part of here, like where it says Harrow Woodcraft folk. So that Harrow Woodcraft folk in bold there, that's Harrow Woodcraft folk in bold there. And we can see that's in the H1 tag for the header. And then it's in a div there, and it says class, header, branding, and we can see that corresponds to, I think over here, yeah, we've got header. So all of the style, the CSS styles here are prefixed with the term header, and it's in a header.html. And so similarly for each of the sections, there is if you look at the introduction, there's a section there, and it's got class introduction and so on and so forth. And these are all pulled together, if I can find the right place, from, I guess, is it from the index.html? Yeah, here. So each of the sections in the site are then pulled together from this page where it grabs the header, the slider, the introduction, the schedules. And so you can sort of see here the layout from here, this sort of overview corresponding to this set of, and this is sort of code, and it's I think it's relatively, just looking at it, it shouldn't be too scary. But so as we've seen before in previous sessions, this is the liquid templating language from Jekyll, which is the sort of blogging framework that we've used to host this. And that allows us to, rather than having it all as one big HTML file, it allows us to break the site up into sections and then pull in different pieces. And so, Linda and Fiona, I think you've done various things. You've been doing pull requests and so on. You're probably feeling fairly comfortable with this, the Jekyll, the templating language. At least it's not totally alien, isn't it?
No, it's not totally alien. I don't think I'd be able to go off and do it all by myself. I'd have to copy and
you know, that sort of thing. I wouldn't be able to put it all out.
No, absolutely.
But yeah, it's obviously not foreign.
And but this is. I mean, I may have shown you a bit of this before, Amrita, but this is sort of new stuff for you, isn't that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. HTML, I have a little bit of working knowledge on HTML, so I would be able to pick it up.
Yeah.
Now that you've told me.
Yeah.
Right. Should be okay.
Yeah, and I think Akoth, you're sort of more on the coding side, and so probably this looks fairly straightforward to you, I would imagine.
I understand what's going on.
Yeah. I always love to hear that. It's a great compliment that so that I'm not talking too fast. That's my other problem, just talking insanely fast. Come on, brain. Right. So, although I guess actually the cold probably helps. It slows me down a bit. Amrita, as regards the design for the Harrow Women's Centre, you've been speaking to Sania. What is that still? Are you still waiting for more content for
yeah, exactly, because they haven't given me enough content to start with, and I haven't got what goes on the home page, what goes on the about page. It's just up to me how to just figure it out. Okay. I have jotted down some points, but I don't think it's enough to go with. So no. I would need some content from Sania. I'm just waiting for that.
Right. I mean, I guess in the absence of, and Sania can sometimes take a while to get these things. I mean, there is let me go over here. There is this, ipsum lorem thing.
Yeah.
To just like generate text to fill out. I mean, I guess have you been thinking about just the colors and the overall layout, or you think you want to get the content first?
First the content, actually. What would go where, then I can decide, right?
Okay.
If the content, if I don't have the content, then
no.
Yeah. Otherwise, I have the basic layout of how things would go, but then I would need some content to go with it, right?
Sure.
And what exactly we need there. So.
Yeah, no problem. No rush there. I mean, so on Wednesday at the Harrow Women's Centre, I helped them manage to access some of their old emails, which clears the way to hopefully next next Wednesday getting control back of these domains. So this is I think the one that they want, and they sort of their previous tech person had control of that, and then they sort of in despairing that they would ever get access to this again, they've got this Wix one that we've that I don't think they're particularly committed to the design of. And we did speak to Sania, didn't we, Amrita? I don't know if it was a week or week before, and she was saying, like rather than doing something quickly in Wix.
She was the whole revamping.
Yeah, she was like, let's just get it all and hopefully up on this harrowwomencentre.org. So the main, shall I say that the issue that I'm thinking that we might encounter relates to the frequency with which the Harrow Women's Centre will want to be editing this. So they've been talking about, I've actually got the little thing here, the notes from last week. Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of things that they would like in their upcoming events and videos and so on. And so in contrast to what we've just done from the for the Harrow Woodcraft sites, it seems like they would want to be sort of editing it fairly frequently, and that means we've got to question the technology that we're using, because at the moment with this Harrow Woodcraft site, if they did want to change, let's say the times of some of their events changed. I mean, these haven't changed for a long time, and I think they're unlikely to. That would sort of be something they would do, or they would make a request to us, and then we would need to come in and so it's not difficult to find. He said, not finding it. Let's do a. If you're familiar with Git, then potentially you can find. That's interesting. Oh, there isn't. It's 8 p.m. If you're familiar with Git and searching for it, then potentially you can fairly quickly find the piece of HTML where those things are. And if you've got the right permissions, you can just edit on this page. Of course, Linda and Fiona, we know all about doing pull requests and so on. But it's not sort of like a friendly, you wouldn't want to necessarily be saying to non-technical people, oh yeah, just go on that page in GitHub and edit it. You know what I mean?
Exactly, yes. This is what I don't want to get into, because I might just mess up with everything.
So the thing that we started, so there's, if we look at, I guess what we might focus on today is the technology options. I mean, I know that it sounds like Linda and Fiona are also working through this Google Analytics. We've also set up analytics for the Harrow Woodcraft site. I mean, that's one of the things that we would want for the Harrow Women's Centre as well. So I guess that's, unless did you make much further progress on the course, Linda, this week? Or
I almost finished the advanced course.
oh, well
done. And then I was going to look at one, maybe using event tracking on Harrow Woodcraft, and also I was going to find out a bit more about Google Tag Manager.
Right.
But yeah, I just wanted to finish going through the courses first, but then I need to apply it to something.
Yes, absolutely. So, and I think yeah, we can definitely. I mean,
yeah,
there's no shortage of places, but certainly we apply that to the Harrow Woodcraft and to the Harrow Women's Centre. And so whichever technology option we use under the hood, you can always add Google Analytics and similar things on the top. So if we look at the technology options, so we've used Jekyll, which is sort of a Ruby static site generator. So the big advantage of something like Jekyll, there's other things like Middleman. I think this is probably the best one to use at the moment. That although it's got some code in it, what it does is when it runs, it basically compiles all of the HTML, all the snippets, and makes one big site. And then that's actually what gets put up, and then that loads really fast. So unlike something like Rails or WordPress or other things, we've got like MediaWiki uses PHP. These are all what we might call dynamic systems, where when somebody makes a request to the browser and they type in a URL and say, I want to see the events page, let's say, then there's actually code is running to kind of assemble the HTML and the CSS and so on and put it out there. And so as a result, these are always somewhat slower, and they also require usually more sophisticated hosting. And so the big advantages that we get from Jekyll, and it's the same advantage we get from any static site generator in any language, is that it's both fast and very cheap to host. And then, for all of the other different things, we have different pros and cons. We did the trick about this is there a good way to allow the non-technical person to edit it? And we were looking, I thought we found the other week a thing called Jekyll Admin. So Jekyll Admin, which, there we go, yeah, a Jekyll plugin that provides users with a traditional CMS-style graphical interface to author content and administer Jekyll sites, which sounds like just what we need. Is everybody familiar with this term CMS?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the content man. Though I've never worked on it, but I do know what is content management. Right?
Yeah. So it's funny how we keep on inventing these acronyms to like, no, we're like, we've got to keep the knowledge secret. But yes, so sort of all of these dynamic sites can be thought of as kind of content management systems, although usually, like when you say content management system, rather than it just being something like Rails or Django or Node Express or what have you, that's a sort of different sort of style of thing, but the content management system, I think of Clone, Drupal, WordPress. They're sort of products that are in a particular language. So I think Clone is Python and Drupal is PHP and WordPress is also PHP. There's a lot of PHP ones. There's Joomla, also PHP. And so these are where you can sort of use them off the shelf. You wouldn't have to do any coding. You would sort of install them, and then you would have basically a content authoring system, and you could like sort of say pages are going to go here and go there. And you know, a lot of these, I think all of these are open source actually. And you know, there's some of them, Drupal and WordPress particularly extremely heavily used, supporting huge numbers of sites. But it's a particular, you know, and each of them has their own different ecosystem of plugins and the community and so on. But they don't, usually these ones, they don't do very well with version management. So that's the big advantage of sort of like when you code your own, and we're using something like Jackal, is that we can have very precisely versioned constructs. And then so if we decide to make a change, as we were doing before with Linda and Fiona page, is that we can sort of try that out and then make, like, given that we've checked that it's working, we can very precisely push that out into another environment. Whereas a lot of with the content management systems, and you've got all these different plugins, it's a bit of a Wild West sort of situation. But I thought what we might do today, at least to start with, is just to sort of investigate this Jackal admin system and see if this was, I mean, it's got a sort of a diagram here of like how the editing would be supported. And we could maybe have a look at this. Is this, I guess it's another thing to look at when you find these things is, you know, how popular are they? It looks like it's, you know, got nearly 2,000 stars. And I guess the code, I mean, I'm looking at, just glancing down there, I mean, the last updates are in kind of up to 5 months ago. We can see it's not been fantastically active in the last week. In the last month, there was a pull request and some issues and so on. With many of these open source things, you know, you can say, oh, I found just the thing. And then it turns out that, you know, it's a bit old and no one's supporting it. But yeah, and any, I guess before I dive into that, any questions on any of that? Any have people heard of other technology options or content management systems that they're excited by, that they'd like to use, or that they just know of?
And I would like to learn WordPress because I think it is quite widely used. So it'd be useful to know how it works.
Sure. Oh, well, that's good to, yeah. I'm doing, you know, a fair chunk of WordPress work myself.
Yeah, even I would like to know more about it because I've heard so much, but don't know much actually.
Oh, okay.
Not enough.
Right. Okay. Oh, well, that's, yeah. That's good to know. I mean, certainly, yeah. It's also an area where I'm. Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, I was using WordPress very long, like 15 years ago.
Yeah, I know it's ancient. And Drupal and Plone, I think these are quite complex language. I mean, CMS. To be very honest, that's what I've heard. I've seen the developers use them, so I'm not too sure about them. But WordPress looks more accessible, and then maybe some of the designers also use it.
Yes. I think that WordPress has got this very, it's sort of got a plugin management system built into it that makes it relatively easy for non-technical users to install new plugins. So yes, I think you're right. I mean, about that these tend to be more developer heavy.
Yeah.
And I know some of the different parts of the NHS, they use Drupal. Yeah, I think WordPress is much more common for people setting up by themselves.
That's right.
So yeah, interesting. So yeah, I mean, that's certainly something we could do. Actually, is do a sort of a comparison there. We could even go into setting up a WordPress site. I guess I'm tempted to. The interesting thing about this is this thing for Jackal. It's saying that it would present sort of an admin system, and we can maybe today look at the admin side of WordPress and the admin side of Jackal. Is the way that we are hosting the Howard Woodcraft site at the moment is, I don't know that this will necessarily work with our current hosting setup. But so this is, you know, we just click through there into the Jackal admin documentation. So we can potentially try this out locally, but I presume that it won't work with GitHub pages. I wonder if anybody will have been asking about that. pages in there. I mean, let's have a look. GitHub Pages.
Why wouldn't it work with GitHub Pages?
I don't know, because I'm imagining that GitHub Pages is only serving the static files and not you know, like it. But I might be wrong. Maybe GitHub Pages is you know, I'm sort of in my mind thinking of it as purely static, but maybe because they do use Jackal themselves under the hood, then it could work, and then that would be a big win for us. I guess in the first instance, yeah, we should go through this little install process. So if I go onto the terminal, have I got the Harold Craft? No, let's have a new terminal window. And so this is the kind of thing, of course, doing stuff on the terminal will put off many folks. But yeah, Linda and Fiona, you're now past masters at the old terminal usage. I know Koth is as well. So here, I mean, I could be checking out a new branch to play around with this, but this is sort of early days. But so it's telling us to start to install the plugins. I guess we'll just Koth and Amrita maybe haven't seen Jackal run from the command line, but so the code that I have all here, that's just in this directory, and then I can do this, just locks it down to use particular libraries, and then I can do Jekyll serve here. Koth, if you're interested in getting the code, feel free to jump to here. I'll just pop that in the chat there if you want to take a copy of the code locally and get that installed and so on. Entirely up to you. But so what that does then is running this here, I can now open a URL. And so we now have here the whole site running locally on my machine, and I think being served dynamically rather than from the static files. We can also run bundle exec Jackal build, and then it will build this site directory, which I think we can see, is it still there? Yes, so it builds this site directory, and this is where, if we look at the index.html there, you can see this is the full file. So this is the sort of the compiled, constructed, complete HTML that's shown to the browser. So that's in this underscore site directory there. So what it's telling us in terms of installing, we don't need those two, let's get those. Here is, right, install the Jackal admin plugin as you would by adding the Jackal admin to the Jackal plugins group in your gem file or to the gem list in underscore config.yaml. So I'm surprised that it says and or. So we've got this configuration file here for Jackal. Usually the process that I would go through of installing would be to getting it into our gem file here to list the libraries. So yeah, we've got a Jackal plugins group in our gem file. So almost there. I'm surprised, like sometimes the install documentation here would be more straight. Yeah, there we go. So we just want, we can add Jackal admin in there. I prefer single quotes, but I guess since everything else around it's got double quotes, we'll just do the same for consistency. And then so we'll shut down the site and we'll run bundle to install that library. Jackal admin library. And then basically it's saying we can go to this admin interface there. Interesting. Okay. So we've made that change. Do we need to make any change to the config? So that the install has completed there, and you can see it's interesting. It's pulled down various things. I can see also that it's pulled down Sinatra, which is like another little web server, which is interesting. But then so we can serve the page again, and then we can go over here and we can try and go to admin. So, oh, there we go. Interesting. So now we have a little content management system for Harrow Woodcraft new members. Interesting. So it's got a list then of our files. What have we got here? So so Jekyll, of course, is, as we've talked about before, it's a blogging system, and the idea is that you'd be posting, blogs weekly or daily or what have you. Or implicitly, we could create them from here, but we've got none at the moment because we're just using the thing as a sort of a static site thing with just a couple of pages. We've also got the data file there, which we can look at. We can see the contents of that. Can we then edit? Interesting. Let's see. Yeah. So I mean, that's certainly we've got that data file that part of the system is relying on.
Description in quotes.
That's a good question there. I don't know that it necessarily needs to be. There may be that there's some character in there. I think that's optional. We could certainly try removing those quotes and see what happened. We've got those data files, static files, unsaved pages. I want to leave. Okay. And then static files. Oh, right. And we've got all the different images and the configuration. Excuse me. That's interesting. And I guess if I click in here, right. And so I guess this is giving us it's giving us a mechanism to sort of edit these components, but it's maybe, I mean, if we click on view there, it's just the page itself.
Back to the data files with the descriptions. Are the ones, so yeah, because the descriptions for the first two are not in quotes and the same as the description for the last one that is in quotes. There isn't anything different.
No, I mean, the only thing that I was seeing that was different is that there was the use of an exclamation mark. Sometimes special characters.
That's what I was yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yes, we could certainly try it without those. Yeah. Go on.
So this is completely linked to the website now.
Well, it's an interesting question about what it's doing. So we've got now this admin. It's clearly getting the files from the local system. I mean, the interesting thing in some ways is to make a change and see what impact that has. For some reason, I dramatically wasn't happy with that one. Let it make more new friends, because you've already got new friends, but then make more. And if we save that, could not update the file. There you go.
Okay.
So that's, I mean, I wonder if the browser will tell us about the error there. So it says, go on.
What was it before?
Oh, it was just make new friends. And I added the word more just to see about editing it. And so having tried to save, it's then interestingly just got undefined method to API for nil class, which is a fairly common Ruby error. But yeah, so there might be, see, if we go and look at the Jekyll folks thing here, so just read the other bits and pieces. Related options can be specified under a key Jekyll admin. Currently it has only one option for hiding unwanted links on the sidebar. Okay, yeah, so not much configuration. It's obviously sort of installed. But the thing then is I'm tempted to go and look at the there. Has somebody else seen this? Could not. No, it's just the individual words. Looking for. I don't know if there was something else I was supposed to do out of the box here to API in the issues. Oh, here we go. Updating existing posts gives there. So this is someone who's had the same problem here, and has someone solved it for them? Let's have a look. I have the same issue. Okay. Well, it looks like some people were talking about having it, and then actually, they've had an automated bot close it, but not after having fixed it. So yeah, I mean, I would say there it's probably not worth us spending a lot of time trying to fix this. I don't know about the rest of you, but sort of looking at although this is kind of, it's not a nice friendly interface, it's not it's not really going to allow, I think, super straightforward editing for non-technical people from the Harrow Women's Centre. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
I think particularly like here, they're editing a YAML file, and the YAML file is going to have certain syntax rules, and if they make an error here, then it's going to, it's going to potentially break the site. And on top of that, we've got then even does it work, and does it work with GitHub? So we've got this kind of like stacked up. There might be several things that we need to do to get it to work at all, and even if we got it working, it would still be a bit of a brittle kind of environment for non-technical folks. So yes. I mean, that's making me think. Yeah, maybe WordPress is the way to go. Although it's it didn't. I mean, I was sort of in my mind, I was thinking, oh, well, we'll do another Jekyll thing to build on the understanding that we've got there. We could still be doing that for the parent coding site if we get a design from that from that guy. But maybe we should be starting to look at WordPress, particularly since you're expressing interest in it.
It seemed to, as far as finding these things, that didn't seem too difficult.
When you say finding these things,
all the links, so you could find all the data files, you could find all the pictures and everything. You can find everything here.
Yes,
that was difficult as I expected.
But
it was simpler than you expected.
Yeah.
Yes, it's got a nice clean layout.
Yeah.
For this, and just sort of, if you're willing to poke around, I think you find all the things.
It looks understandable.
Yes.
Apart from the pages are not, they're not the actual pages.
Right. Yeah.
So for a non-technical person to edit content, I think you really have to be using the posts.
Yeah, I think this is set up around the idea that somebody's using that. Sorry, go on, Fiona.
Because we've got all these includes. It's not been built as a Jekyll site, as a blogging site.
That's right.
I think that's the issue with it.
Okay.
So
yeah,
it was built for the purpose it was created, then maybe this would work. But
yeah.
Right, no one can edit index HTML because it's broken down all these individual HTML files.
That's right, and this system isn't set up to then go and, find all of these.
Yeah, you can't get to those.
Yeah, there's not obviously how you can navigate. There may be something that we could configure that then in the list of pages, where it would then have like header.html, information.html, schedules.html, all of those things. That's the kind of thing that, and particularly since Jekyll Admin is open source, that's a project that we could work on. But it would still then ultimately have the Harrow Women's Centre. That could be an interesting and fun project for us to do. It would still be a thing of having the Harrow Women's Centre people editing the HTML files, which is perhaps not ideal. But even then, if we go back to the data file, the static file, data files. Oh, where are the data files? I thought I had.
The data files were,
I think it's now, I've broken, I think trying to edit it, maybe it's like, yeah. So,
I just years of supporting non-technical people. It just looks like a nightmare to.
No, I think
I think it would be useful. I would like to get some experience with WordPress just because it's so widely used.
Yes.
And I don't know. It's just filling in some more of the gaps, I think.
Definitely. Well, and interestingly, what's happened there, and this is partly because we're using version control, we can see that as a result of me attempting to save this data file, it's been deleted. So that's not a tick for there. I mean, I can get that back because we're using version control, which is nice. It's interesting, and I guess I wonder it's
why deleted? That doesn't actually make any sense to me. How does that make sense that it was deleted? You tried to change.
I tried to edit it. Yes.
Right. So why was it deleted?
Well, because the system is not working as we hoped. It looks like, in fact, it has actually saved the data file as a new file with a different name, undefined.
Right.
And that's due to some sort of misconfiguration or programming error in the system.
Okay.
So presumably if it was working correctly, rather than deleting this file and then resaving it as a thing called undefined, it would have actually worked. And again, that's something like, working on the Ruby code, and I mean, potentially together with the community, like it would be a different matter in some ways if, having searched through the, the recent things here, I mean, I'm seeing this as like 2017, some people, encountered the same sort of problem. Several of them encountered it. And, there was some chatter, but no solution.
Right.
And so that tells me that the community around this particular open source project is kind of, if, I mean, even if I was just working on this by myself, independently of concerns about what you're interested in or what's, fun for you folks. Like, I'm just thinking about, let's say I was working independently on this, I would be, and even if I trusted myself, I mean, I'm fairly skilled in Ruby, I'm sure I could get in there and fix it and so on. But I would think, I'm kind of up here by myself fixing this thing, and there's not necessarily a lot of support for other people fixing the issues that are coming up in the code. And basically any code base without active human intervention kind of rots away, shall we say.
Yeah.
So that's, even if one or two issues were surmountable, doesn't give me great confidence in it going forward.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this one from a technical point of view, it's clearly doing nearly the right thing. But then, even if we had it like, and I think as Linda's saying, editing YAML and HTML files where you have to get the syntax correct is just the kind of thing that's hugely painful for non-technical users, and we have that in lots of our other projects as well. So what we potentially get with WordPress, and actually what I can maybe do now is show you, we have got, so one of our paid projects involves WordPress. And have I shown, I think I've shown some of you this site before, but this is a site that we've done.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
Yeah, for this literary society. There's this famous author called Anthony Powell, and we've done some work for them, and we did their membership database, and they actually wanted their membership database is completely separate from their website. So there was two different projects. One is the membership database, and the other one is the website. And the website's been done. They explicitly requested WordPress because their previous website had been like, the person who did it for them did like a custom PHP content management system.
Mm-hmm.
Not one of these sort of existing things, but just wrote their own. And then that person went away, and like all software, it gradually began to rot away and basically became just unusable for them. So they explicitly requested WordPress based upon their knowledge of sort of WordPress market share and the idea that, well, if it's done in WordPress and, okay, the current developers move on, then at least in future we can ask other WordPress people to get involved and sort it out.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so it's ended up being quite a big site with lots and lots of content, which we've sort of moved over from all of the other one. This is Lara, one of our premium members, really did the heavy lifting for all of this. But the interesting thing that we can see is, so in the same, you can see in the same way. I mean, it's a static. I guess it's a static site. I'm not sure actually. When I think about it under the hood, if bits of PHP are running all the time, or if it's precompiled. Anyway, that's another question. But we have a similar sort of model as we just saw with the Jackal with the /admin. So WordPress sites, usually if you go to WP-admin, then you end up going to an admin view of the site. I might just take a moment. There we go. And I think I'm already logged in. And so then this is, as you can see, not as clean and nicely laid out necessarily as this Jackal admin. I mean, they've gone simple and straightforward, and it's a nice design. WordPress has been evolving over many years, and this is a whole different kind of battleground. But it's designed around the idea that you can do quite a lot of stuff without having to edit HTML and YAML files and configuration and so on. And so I'd say correctly adminning and configuring a WordPress site is still a somewhat technical thing. But if you've had someone set one up for you, then you can kind of get around without too much trouble. But have any of you used a WordPress admin system before?
No. I've come across it a few times, but no, I've never actually had to use it or update or do anything with it.
Yeah. Koth, have you used WordPress much in the past?
No, not really. I'm into frameworks like Rails. I'm working on Rails currently.
Yeah.
I'm working with Rails.
Indeed, you are doing some stuff on the local support for us, which we really appreciate. Yeah, and it's often tempting. Like I think people who are doing, working with Rails and Django and so on. Someone says, like, I need a site and a system to do this, and the temptation is to build a custom Rails site or a custom, PHP site or whatever. And that's often more fun to do if you're of a code, if you enjoy coding. There's often trouble in having that system supported down the line. It's usually going to be more expensive to support a custom Rails or custom PHP or custom Python system in the long run than it is to take an off-the-shelf content management system and work with that. That said, working with a custom coded system, which we can sort of pull out there. So we've got this is going to give a lot more flexibility. We've got those two mentioned below, have we? I mean, MediaWiki, MediaWiki is a content management system. Let's pop it in there. We've got a big MediaWiki instance that we're managing for the NHS. Yeah, so you're going to get a lot more flexibility with this. These ones you end up being at the mercy to an extent of what plugins are available. These ones are often more reliable, but not always. It depends. You can get some very unreliable plugins. There's this. Each of these has an ecosystem, a whole ecosystem of plugins associated with them. These also have plugins that sort of at a lower level. We can see how we just went and had a look at the Jackal admin system. So we can say Jackal admin not well supported recently. And to that thing that I was sort of doing there of reviewing the repo and how active it had been recently and so on, you start, if you're going to be involved with doing Rails or Django or Express, you need to be able to do the same thing for the open source repos for the plugins for them. And then similarly for, if you're working with WordPress or MediaWiki, there's a whole plugin ecosystem for them. And then you need to kind of start to get good at identifying which are the right plugins to use. And that sort of takes time and organization. So what Lara has done for this system is she's used the Elementor plugin. The particularly interesting thing actually about WordPress ecosystem is they've got a very active sort of framework of you've got this whole WordPress and you can sort of see the plugins. And so this is sort of the equivalent of the GitHub thing. And so it tells you there's like over 1 million active Elementor page builder installations around the world. A lot of people are using it. And you've got like here, I mean, you've got this whole rating system, and you've got a good couple of thousand people saying there that they, really quite like it. And so being able to like do like, no one's saying we need to be building a WordPress site from scratch and choosing all the plugins. I can help you do those things, but in the long run, sort of expertise in WordPress or any of the other content management systems comes down to being able to sort of get a sense for which plugins are the stable ones that work well and are going to do the things that you need. Does that all make sort of sense? But so we can have a look at here. So we've got all the different pages for that Literary Society website. And so, I mean, this is then where it becomes tricky. Like, so we've got like edit and quick edit, which are the sort of the default WordPress editing things, but we mustn't use them now with edit with Elementor, because that will sort of, break things. We need to, remember to click the edit with Elementor. So that's a little, I mean, we could be thinking about doing a WordPress site for the How Women's Center and using Elementor to create this kind of nice layout like this. And then you can get sort of, you can actually start doing editing here, and you're no longer having to edit the HTML. You can get the WYSIWYG editing. And I assume we'd all agree that for the non-technical user, this is the way that we would, there's an update button down at the bottom left here. That's going to be a much more reliable way of enabling the non-technical user to update the pages in their site.
Right.
But so the challenge in some ways is that while with the right plugins, WordPress can provide sort of a nice interface, there's then needing the non-technical user to be able to navigate this somewhat more complex WordPress administration interface, if you know what I mean. And the other funny thing about this is that you end up getting, like, you're sort of in a sort of a captive advertising thing here. So you end up, if we go and sort of look, I mean, this is sort of better than some. So you get these messages about updating the plugins, and then messages saying, oh, there's new versions and keeping it updated, and is any of those things going to break the site? And it's like, hello, seems you're in this admin interface. You can see how, like, in contrast with here, this is nice and clean. There's not so many things going on, right? You can sort of see, actually, completely broken it now. No. So, obviously can't use that. It being in a WordPress thing is a bit like you've been caught in an advertising tunnel with people, it's like, okay, you deserve it. It's like, I don't know, you're asking me to do these things. How's it going to affect the site? I'm not sure. So there's but I think it would be that would be an interesting thing to do, would be to sort of create a WordPress site from scratch and sort of play around and get familiar with this environment, if you were all interested in doing that. I think we can you can get started pretty easily with, is it WordPress.org or with you can get, I mean, I've got a WordPress account from a long time ago. How likely, oh God, I don't know, I don't want to answer these complicated questions. I think I've got this here that I can just sort of create some more. There we go, it's my sites. Here we go. My profile. There we go. My sites. Can I, free domain with the plan, upgrade. Anyway, I mean, I think we're sort of getting up on time, but if that's a direction we're interested in following, then we can maybe move towards looking at, oh gosh, I did have a WordPress site. Gosh, how long ago was that? I was living in Japan when I did that. Wow, yeah, look at this. Oh, no, I guess, look, some posts from 2009. No, I was in Hawaii. There you go, that's my... Goodness me. There you go. All right. Well, I hope that was, yeah. Any questions or things on your mind before we wrap up for today? Good show.
Yeah.
All right. So, well, hopefully by next Friday, we'll have the How Women's Centre domains available. We can still, of course, we could be sketching, you know, initial versions in Jekyll, but I think maybe, yeah, we should start looking at WordPress in parallel. I know Linda and Fiona it's a busy time of year, so yeah, I guess we just check in again next week.
Yeah.
If people do want to make accounts for themselves at WordPress.com, I think you can get like sort of one free WordPress site available. I don't know if you get admin access on that there. Oh, I do. There you go. That's my. Yeah, so they have WordPress offers both sort of hosted ones, or we can like check it out and host it ourselves somewhere else. So do I mean maybe a tiny bit of homework and things to look at is to go to WordPress.com and create an account there just to get like a little site to fool around with.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So stop. Okay, and so I would just log in or get started.
Yeah, you could just follow the instructions there.
Okay.
And it's useful to have, even if you end up not hosting a site there, various of the plugins that you might want to use for WordPress in the future require you to like sign in via WordPress.com as a kind of like third-party authentication in order for you to get help and support and so on. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also interested in looking at for WordPress what we've done for an NHS project. We've set it up so that we can deploy our own MediaWiki systems very easily using Docker. And I'm kind of we wouldn't do that in these sessions. It's a very technical sort of DevOps operations side thing. But I'm personally interested in seeing if we can get you know, a nice framework for deploying and maintaining and updating WordPress in the same way that we've managed to do for MediaWiki, to try and make projects like this Anthony Powell one a bit more, you know, have version control in a way that we don't automatically get with WordPress.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, great.
All right, great to see everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. In the meantime, I'll just work on the just a few designs for that.
Fantastic. Yes, please do share them when you have.
I'll do that. Yeah.
I think I'll make sure we've got a How Women's Centre channel. Great stuff. All right. Bye for now. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.